Tenzin Dorjee Geshe
Let us cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. And for that reason, we cultivate bodhicitta motivation, and with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this teaching. As we set complete enlightenment or Buddhahood as our ultimate spiritual goal, now we may think that, well, that is rather very difficult to accomplish. Yes, it is, difficult, but that does not mean we cannot attain it. We should consider that there have been, countless, beings who already attained Buddhahood or became Buddhas. And, before there was a time that all the present Buddhas were just like us, as ordinary and deluded as we are, but many of them have already become Buddhas. Okay, nobody is saying that it is easy to become a Buddha. Yes, it is difficult. Why? Because when we look at the process that we have to go through to become a Buddha, there are two mental obscurations, delusions and obscuration to omniscient wisdom. These are the two mental obscurations that we must get rid of completely from within our mind. And we also need to fulfill the two types of accumulation of merit or positive energy and accumulation of wisdom. And according to Buddhist Sutrayana point of view, it takes many eons for an individual person to purify himself or herself of the two types of mental obscuration and fulfill the two types of accumulation and thereby become a Buddha.
That and this Singi Kandiki Tatande need Kandiki go, they Chevaka Amaras. When not that Singi Kandiki in there, and the Tar and the Sanji Compotoya the Neveres.
So it doesn't matter what our present situation and circumstances are, or what kind of a sentient being that we are at the moment, but every sentient being will eventually, become a Buddha.
Kaki Sambala, and the Kulu Manda and Zamil Tamamboyers. The Sanji Combato, and then to Kandis top together some young washing it into us.
And in our world, we have many different religious systems or the traditions, and I believe there are some people, who started to question what is the possibility of becoming a Buddha.
That Kulu Mambo, but Hidayahura, Karen, there's a Samalo, Sanji Combato, Yan Royak Langa, but this on the Chaviores.
And it is wonderful that we have so many religious systems of the traditions, and they are all, in a sense, to use a metaphor, like the staircase. All of these, I believe, help us to climb on and get to enlightened state.
So that Sanji Samalo, that Sanji Savan to Yoderes.
From a Buddhist theoretical standpoint, every sentient being has in his or her mind a seed of enlightenment. And so that's why it is very possible for every sentient being to become a Buddha eventually.
That's Savan to Yordana, Savan to Yoga do you am having the two in those in that to me and that have healing having to take words.
Yes, we all have seed of enlightenment in our minds, but that does not mean that seeds alone are enough for us to become Buddhas. We need to activate the seeds of enlightenment. We need to provide favorable conditions to nurture the seeds and the growth of the seeds so that we are able to harvest, if you will, the fruit of enlightenment. So it's not enough to, in order to grow something, it's not enough to have good seeds, but we also need to find a good soil or a land. So in the same way that our state of mind, our mental consciousness is a suitable soil or a land in which we can plant the seed of enlightenment. So when we talk about mind, it all seems like just a single phenomenon, but that's not the case. We have many different states of mind, and many of them are what we call deluded states of mind or negative states of mind. So negative states of mind are not the suitable land or soil in which we can plant the seeds of enlightenment and grow them.
Inside the Zambo and the same carriers and Shawaki June, the same June that
So then what state of mind is that which is the suitable land-like or soil-like in which we can plant the seed of enlightenment? If we ask, it is our mental consciousness that goes from one life into another life. So there is that state of mind that it maintains its continuity, a continuum from one life into another life.
다 생기 간다지네야. 근데 그 생그 땡그 춘이도 다 외사와지. 생 생기 간다지는 생비요. 다 생기 준이요. 생기 준이 땡다. 안에 산지제릭다 디요디오레스.
So every sentient being has such a state of mind that goes from one life into another life, and the nature of that mind is clear light, and so it is in that kind of a state of mind that continues from one life into another life that we plant our seed and nurture our seed of enlightenment.
당가란 진지는 잡에 사변 살았다는 좀 미야가 답이들은 추다 르다 아니 저 근데 ene 돌아 hinji시진 되고도 왔어.
Ordinarily speaking, in order for us to grow anything, we need good seeds, we need good soil, and then it's not enough to put the seeds in a good soil, but we need to provide it with the right kind of a temperature, and we need to provide it with the water, we need to provide it with the manure or fertilizer. So when all these favorable causes and conditions are provided and they interact and work together, then we see the seeds grow very beautifully. Just like that.
다 된데가 아니 큐리던 제외 아니 hinji시진 다 샘그 땡 아니 다 샘데 아니 사변 좀 힘버셔 가르고 그러잖아 아니 퇴바다 쌈바다 아니 곰바텐데가 아니 제 셰고레스.
So just as we need to provide the right temperature and water and fertilizer to the seeds to grow beautifully in an ordinary sense, in the same way, for us to grow the seed of enlightenment in our mind, we need to provide it with favorable conditioning factors, just like water and sunlight. And the favorable conditioning factors here are listening to teaching, contemplation, and meditation. Sam kom sum. Listen, contemplate, meditate. These three things are the activating conditions that we need to provide to activate and nurture our seed of enlightenment.
소소에 로조시에서 때 아니 양배 최를 로조시에 때 아니 사변도 좀 미야게 채도 레스.
So as you can see, the importance of doing what we call Buddhist education or study or listening to teaching, how that is an important part of providing a favorable conditioning factor to activate and nurture seed of enlightenment in our mind.
The same thing. 나란서 때 사변도 좀 힘들잖아요. 땡도 야고지 란전데 때리 벤 힘마다 때 용도 때 나이게 same thing is 사변도 저다 힘들잖아요. 가르쳐 그러잖아. 아니 꾸인도 줘 조고도 최고서 인도 줘야지.
So when we provide all the necessary favorable condition and factors to our seed of enlightenment, then that seed will grow very beautifully, and we see how this seed blossoms into the tree of realization, and then we can enjoy the good harvest like the fruits of enlightenment on it. So as this seed of enlightenment grows, what kind of fruits can it provide us, if you ask? There are two, as we often talk about, two types of enlightened body called kayas. There is the enlightened form body and enlightened truth body.
다 교구세야 될 도세네 아니 누지지고 전데 마시고 인도스 차고요 그래서.
We can further categorize these two enlightened bodies into different types. In the case of Dharmakaya, Chuku or truth body, it has two different aspects of the dimension. One is what we call a composite aspect, and it is called what called unproduced dimension of truth body, and another one is a non-composite or wait a minute, I have to redo this one. The truth body has two dimensions. One is a composite dimension of truth body, which is called the produced dimension, and another one is the non-composite or unproduced dimension of truth body.
No. That thanking him in bus. When the seven types of himself, somebody same there is. That same day, any non-changing word, that number than each being on years. They could that the same day thing the 20 years, they on you say, the much is good. No change where is.
So when we nurture the seed of enlightenment in our mind, and eventually it becomes what we call an omniscient mind of a Buddha, all-knowing mind of a Buddha. And that aspect of enlightenment is what we call composite or the produced dimension of enlightened body. But then the ultimate nature of omniscient mind, that is the non-produced or unproduced or the non-composite dimension or aspect of enlightenment.
That thing then Zukuti Tatela Tembe and Zukuti and the Sanjay Chain the Peji Yonketa and the Peji Tajim but Tatana and the young Tamabat Zogan Tung in Twag and the Trugus Tendos in Longo the Trugu that meaning Tawieris.
So just as we can talk about two different dimensions of Dharmakaya or truth body, in the same way we can talk about two different dimensions or aspects of enlightened form body, Rupakaya or Suku in Tibetan. And the two are, there is what we call emanation body or Nirmanakaya, Tulku, that fortunate ordinary beings are able to access or have access to, they can perceive and interact with. And such an enlightened body is also characterized by major and minor marks of realization. But then another form body or the dimension of the form body is Sambhogakaya, or complete resource body, a complete enjoyment body called Longu, which ordinary people cannot perceive or interact with, but a higher level bodhisattvas can interact with it.
That Tendek and Cuban Sanji Chukuta and Zuku and Nimboten Sinki Kandeji in there. That Kandeji in a Petana Yawali Yone, Namgikin, and Sanji Combatueta, you had the rest.
So what I'm saying here is, from Buddhist theoretical standpoint, every sentient being, wherever we are at this particular moment, maybe we are in the worst kind of hell, but we all have what is called a seed of enlightenment or Buddha nature. And when that is activated, then we all can eventually become an enlightened being or a Buddha with those four enlightened bodies, the two types of truth bodies and the two types of form bodies.
That Tendek Ranzo Lojon she had the Goba Chembo, Tendek and the Sanji could drag chet around Samaloka, Lojoshigioris, Nambi, Kil Lojoshigioris.
So all of us who are involved in the Buddhist education here, or teachings, we should understand the importance, the significance of what we are doing. What we are doing, our study, listening to teaching, and participating in Buddhist education is a very important part of our practice, if you will, to activate and nurture the seed of enlightenment within ourselves.
That Tendek and the Sanji Combat Tobina, Ranki with the Devo Kat Karina, that Yungri some teeth and the Shigamaris. Tendek and the Senji Yen, Devo the Shiva Miata, and the Senji Yen, Dungi the tiny Devata then be cared, and there many Narazolosan Shiata, Gom Jay, the Karinata, Tendek Shivaris.
We must understand the underlying motivation behind our Buddhist education here is that we are not pursuing enlightenment or Buddhahood, so then we ourselves can be very happy and peaceful and everything goes well with our own life. That's not our motivation, and that's not a part of our pursuit here. Our underlying motivation is that we want to bring an end to the suffering and causes of suffering of all sentient beings, and we want all sentient beings to find the highest level of peace and happiness, so that is our motivation and a goal, and with that as our motivation and goal, we pursue enlightenment.
Sung the Jason Dangare, they trade the Cardesson and Saint Yen Rang Sanji Combato Kid, those in the Kanang Yoris, that thing around so good, done that thing at the Harang, Drubach, Santani, and Tosum Shigu.
We are following the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, and what Buddha teaches us is how to become complete enlightened beings or Buddhas. And so what is involved in that, a central idea or the essential element is that we want to become a Buddha for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So with that kind of altruistic motivation, bodhicitta motivation, we need to pursue our study and practice.
Tatri Choki and Dangaran Samaloga pay Hinkin or Tense Toyata. That's about the machine by here children humans.
So I share some of these thoughts, and for those who already know about these things, it is a reminder for us to reflect and consider these matters, and for others this is new, then you are learning something new.
That Kasi Dundanghamake, he ever then do Cresse. Ane Danga Toiking Mandaki, Taika Nansomas, there's not taken the West. We sing out and in those in Mandos in it. Tabata, Taisha Combatova Shepala, Gitimpa, Tadata, Mintipakil, Labgus Kanansomas.
Now we will go back to where we left off in this wonderful text called a Miscellaneous Collection of Kadampa Geshe's Personal Advices. And last week we talked about what Geshe Chekaba had got to say in his public teachings, and he said that we should all learn 4 things and behave and think very differently from the ordinary people's way of thinking and behavior. Now remember what are the 4 things we talked about last week? So we must not misunderstand and misinterpret Geshe Chekaba's words where he said, we should think and behave differently from ordinary people. We must not misinterpret and misconstrue what he was really trying to communicate to us.
So we must
not think in the sense like, okay, so what Geshe Chekaba was saying is don't do what the majority of the people are doing, and then by that we mean that, okay, majority of the people go to bed at night, so which means I will do the opposite and stay up all night. No, he's not talking about that. And then, maybe, many ordinary people are given to, frustration and anger and maybe start fight with others. Well, and we shouldn't follow that and do the same thing. We're not talking about that either.
And that, but they can say, the yin was, so remember, we went through the 4 things that Geshe Chekaba advises us to follow, and I also told you to reflect upon them and have you. Ali Tambo Delane Naranzo Tamapatanzoga Saint Sanje Kebran Zingrest Kanasomas.
So So one of the things that Geshe have talked about that we ordinary beings, cherish, Buddhas, but not sentient beings.
Hola. That the junsi the karimi tante that those makanang do the sanje dan senji sanje le and the senji jebran zigu res.
Yes.
The gunse karesan they get the henas in Santa junse kares na.
Yes.
Sanje la magupra maunse. That sanje is a tamalo could give she at the winnie tonic pay the Joshes in Song Sunny. At the Mugubatsa shake marriage. And Sangila and are Sangila and the Nagimaris, Karis Junsi Gi when the Kevan Zingu Canon.
So Geshe was telling us that ordinary people cherish Buddhas but not sentient beings. So one of the things we need to learn is that do the opposite. We need to learn to cherish sentient beings, and so he gives us the reason why. And part of the reason is that it's rather hard for people not to respect Buddhas, because that seems to be an easy thing to do. Whereas respecting sentient beings and cherishing sentient beings is where the challenge is, and so we need to learn to cherish and respect sentient beings.
That Junsi Yi when Senji Tamki Kevan Zingus up, Junsi Jigan and Tambo Karisana, Koa name Senji Nams, Dag Pama in Pigoni Kevan Zingus. That Kola Naging Senji Kanaji in there. This is Samalu Rangi Patama, and it in the Junsi Samni, and they Kevan Zingus Kano.
So he talks about 4 reasons that we could use to respect and cherish sentient beings. The reason number 1 is we should think about how all sentient beings have become our kind parents, father and mother, Kadampa, in samsara. And so by understanding that kind of a relationship we have with sentient beings that have been our parents, then we develop respect for them and we cherish them.
Yeah. That Pama than Java Sumun was Pama Yimbe Gonis, there's something chamber. Rangi Pama than Java Senaya, Pama She Manuel be singing every zone Tangurish. And there's a Pama She Manuel be the same mess Kanangurish.
So when we pay close attention to the wordings of Geshe Chekawa's teachings, he's telling us that we should think about how all sentient beings have become our kind parents. He did not say, think of sentient beings as kind as just like parents. He didn't say sentient beings are like parents, but kind of, sort of, not really. Then we started to question like, okay, maybe there are sentient beings who have nothing to do with me, they're kind of, sort of. He's not saying that. He said sentient beings have been our kind parents. So therefore, we need to recognize that and respect and cherish them.
Then deal and it then deal son of Mambo Matana. Regard that and they told the son of Mambo Matana, and it is the Niala Kali coverage.
So, of course, we need to really use analytical thinking and reasoning to be able to understand even this concept, right? Otherwise, it's rather not that easy to think of all sentient beings as having been our kind parents, and then we need to respect them and cherish them.
Tapena Rang Shiva Demato, Shiva Yen, and Kilis Namita, Shiva Yen and Hamagona, Shiva Yen Yabda Hamagona, and Tandandi. What
I mean to say is, for example, if we are only confined to this life, as if this is the only life, that ever existed, well, then it's really difficult to think of all sentient beings as having been our parents, right? And we we don't know and we deny the existence of life before and the life after, then there is no framework for us to understand how could sentient beings being our parents. But then, if we only think about this lifetime and nothing else, then we all know we only got 2 parents, right? We can't have more than that. So then, the whole thing is not making sense. So relating to what Geshe Chekapa said, we need to understand there are such things as life before and life after.
Shewang Haman and Derima, and then the Shaman Drag, that thing about the killing by case in the that's also touch of the Google.
So we need to investigate and understand and develop, certainty in that we came from previous life to this life, and from this life we will go into next life. So we should investigate this matter and develop, definite understanding of life before and life after.
So that condition Tandang around the Shewan data. That's also Tongo, that they show along the other was in at the Yonsa, the any Shewan Hamani. These Shewan Haman, the Shewan Hamas, those you have to do something that Tomiris.
This life is here right now, and we are experiencing it, so maybe not difficult for us to deny its existence. It is here, and it is right here, and we have it. But where does this come from? Then we try to analyze it. This life comes from the previous life. So where does the previous life come from? We go to the next one, previous to that. So as we go on tracing, the previous lifetimes, then there is no really beginning to our rebirth.
Diane is no something. That did the Nijimi Gugumando Sata Dota Hint the Medolas of a tendency that million junior to the man or something, Tobasangor was.
And then some might even have a doubt, we don't have to complicate the matter like this. I think maybe we just came out of the inanimate rocks and trees and plants and somewhere. Why do we have to go back and try to trace it, go endlessly like that? Maybe we just came out of the rocks,
That diligence in years, Hebe Jundi Hebakini Mayona, to use the Jusikiris.
And there are reasons why we couldn't have come from the rocks or the trees. Number one, we have what is called, mind or mental consciousness, and that could not have been produced by inanimate objects, and that could not come out of rocks and trees.
So same the Pamalki same the Kiwaki Sam Tangjamar, Zayaki Tangitan Tangi. So say, you said the my ngani yombrete in my same the rang sing with the Kiwachagamaras, Saint June Cardis.
But we must also not confuse our own mind with or the consciousness as if it is something came out of the mind of our mother or father. Yes, they produced us. We were in the womb of the mother. We came out of her womb. But that being said, our consciousness of the mind is not identical with mom or dad's consciousness, or it's not an offshoot or a product of their consciousness. It's a different consciousness.
That's sad though that the enemy have sangina, that lende nagat machibaris.
And if we think that rocks and pebbles and trees could produce our mind, then that means we really have failed to understand the theory of karma.
That number Sanjibayina, Sanji Kandakina, Lady Shebayin, but never the Shiguyore, the killing Guyore.
As a Buddhist, no matter what denominations we belong to, all of us must try to understand the theory of karma. And not only understand it, but we have to develop trust and belief in the law of karma and its results.
Can you
Great Indian Master Acharya Vasubandhu said that the different world systems have come about from a variety of karmas. And there are different types of karma, such as the intentional karma and unintentional karmas. Great Indian Master Acharya Chandakiri has said that all sentient beings have been produced by their karmas, and so which means that all sentient beings in samsara are the results of their karmic actions.
Round number Sanjay in some shit, number Sanjay of your killing. And me, then Junte, Sata, daughter, healing joint, and this kill number in the peta, get up chimberies.
So we claim ourselves to be Buddhists, and then we started to say that, my mind or the consciousness came from, rocks and pebbles and trees and twigs, like that. That is a big contradiction. And I just quoted you on a few words of great Indian masters. Of course, all of their words are based on what Buddha originally said, so you can see the contradiction right there. What they said, and if we believe that inanimate objects have produced our consciousness.
So that and the part of Malay that and the Saint Ying part of my share that tongue of Chaguars.
So the point I'm trying to make here is, since beginningless time, we have been reborn so many times in samsara, and during the course of those times, sentient beings have become our kind parents.
So that rank dying here, sending rank dying, Shevang Hamal rank part of Mata, Sumota Mingbo, attended touch never shares.
So somebody might say, wait a minute, what about the enemies I have in this life? Well, they are the enemies in this life, but they have not always been enemies in every lifetime. And in many other lifetimes, they have become our kind parents, they have become our cousins and our best friends and relatives. And those who have been close of friends and relatives in this lifetime, in previous lifetimes they also did many nasty things to us. They killed us many times, they hurt us many times. So the point I'm trying to make here is that sentient beings have been equally kind and equally, in some sense, nasty to us over the many lifetimes. So they have been our friends, they have been our enemies. They are all equal.
That since today, Nanjus no some down being a Danyan Judo Shepherd do some down being any Naranzo Semte any Parame data Nile, Dale down Maimpa, Nile Cherichawa Maimpa, and Parutele de Tue, Tang about Yunguriste, some tongues.
So if we meditate on the fact that how relationships we have with sentient beings have been changing in many ways, that friends become enemies, enemies become friends, and this has been true in this life, and this has been true in many other lifetimes, then we started to develop a sense of equanimity towards all sentient beings. Because after all, they have been our friends, they have been our enemies. So who do we discriminate against, and who do we get to love? They're all same,
That is something, and Pama Imbigoni, Kepran Zinke Range, and Saint Yen Tamal Rangi can be Saint Tamal Range, Pama Imbi, and the Gones, and the Kepran Zinke attack if you mean,
But then we always take on the positive side and thinking, and we say that sentient beings have been kind parents, so therefore we need to respect them and cherish them. So that was one of the reasons Geshe Shekawa gives us why we need to learn to cherish sentient beings, in a sense more than Buddhas.
So that then they soon did Saint Yen never stage map, Saint Kandaki never stage map and Ranso Shego to us.
So we need to learn to respect and cherish sentient beings. What we do understand from this is that we cannot hurt them, we cannot harm them.
So near the position, so something that Kashi drying somebody, Kashi yin somebody. Kapami saying it to Yavandor, Naransia, that and the shade of your Samalo.
So we really need to examine ourselves individually and personally, our state of mind, and our attitudinal reactions towards sentient beings. Even as Dharma practitioners or trying to practice Dharma, when we look at ourselves, how we function in everyday life, we categorize sentient beings into different types: friends, enemies, and strangers. That's how we see them, and that's how we relate to them and react to them. But this is where, we are making a mistake or an error.
Shanjuji Sem Gondi Zane, Jundi Mengadinju Gondi Jondi Zane, Tambo and the Sinja Tangela may be Tanyo the Shegu.
So when we think about cultivating bodhicitta for sentient beings, at the beginning, what we need to do is we need to prepare our mind for cultivating bodhicitta, altruism, and we do that by way of cultivating sense of equanimity, balanced state of mind, even-mindedness in relation to sentient beings.
That is Joyade, Tawan Jambus Mares, Lega Shesatan, Social Rojan Yandu Shalom Shesata, Ro, Kanditi in a Tanzu Yandu show, Zona Yahweh to some Tangres.
So we'll talk about cultivating sense of equanimity to other sentient beings. We are not simply talking about when we are sitting on a cushion and meditating. That's what we do. So when we get up, then it stops there. No. In every social interactions we have, we go to the jobs, we have co-workers to deal with. That's where we try to take the opportunity to cultivate sense of equanimity in relation to them. We live with our friends or family members. We try to cultivate a sense of equanimity in relation to them. We need people in our everyday situations. So we try to cultivate the balanced state of mind in every given opportunity and situations. That's what we're talking about, not simply when we are sitting and doing some kind of a meditation. So maybe that will be enough to talk about the need to cherish sentient beings.
Dag pen dag go be gone, Japan Zingues, that day river. That rang Saint Tangi Dosene, rang Pama Yin, Jensi, Samni, Hakosuna, that Tenzu Kodang and so doing on that notion that is Zane, that was what Zeta Mebanovich. That Tenzu paint Dane, Tenzu Kodang and so doing the Tavi, Shego somebody done about the young go to us.
Now, the second reason to respect and cherish sentient beings is once we really become very clear that sentient beings have been our kind parents, well, the next thing is very logical sense that we need to look at their situation. They are going through a lot of difficulties and pains and suffering, and so we need to repay their kindness. And that makes all sense, logically. And so we cultivate empathy with their situations, and we find their difficulties and suffering unbearable, and we develop a wish, how can we repay their kindness.
That singing doing the Nasu Sandu Sani, ne Nyawala Are Chadang Dunge, ne Tundola Marie Yidala take on good Dunge, Tundola link him with Dunge. I think Malashagan and Juk Dungas that and leave Mambuji Sound Congress.
So we will consider the problematic situations in which we find, sentient beings in. Of course, there are, different types of suffering that we can think about, but there are specific sufferings that sentient beings experience in different situations. For example, when you think about sentient beings in the hells, so their sufferings are primarily consisted of, suffering of heat and cold. When you think about sufferings of predators, or hungry ghosts, their suffering is primarily consists of starvation and thirst. So when we think about the sufferings of lesser kind of animals, a lot of their sufferings is to do with what we call, obscured state of mind, for lack of a better word to translate, lensing timibo, which sometimes we translate as stupidity, and some people get so upset. But it's, it is obscured state of mind. Relating to that, they don't know what to do much, to take care of themselves. And then we think about the humans. we got the sufferings of birth, aging, death, sickness, and all of that.
Then that lama in la tabzu kudungesi. Ani la la chimpo tongi dungesi and those in that. Does any kid and you thought Lamrin is got now your jetta, Manju Lamrin, Choran, Samaloke, Lamrin let pay to some shade. That Yamni she had the Nabat Shagurs.
And then the asuras or the demigods have their problems because they are constantly fighting for power and status with the gods, and so they often get defeated. So they get killed, tortured, and they have their suffering. Now the gods, with a little g, gods, or the divine beings, got their problem because when they are nearing death, now they started to freak out because they see where they are going to fall down. And so this is their problem. So we consider all these different problems and suffering in samsara experienced by beings. And as a matter of fact, Lamrim extensively presents and describes these sufferings, and this is what we try to bring into our mind and reflect upon, and then wish sentient beings to be free from suffering.
Subject to the Yuga, the Yuga Amar, the K chambers, the travelers, you go a car and travelers. That Danda Anipe. They share my dragon and they share and share some pounds.
There seems to be so much resentment and when we talk about the sufferings of the three unfortunate states of rebirth, hells and hungry ghosts and that's the kind of animal. People kind of resist it and they don't like it. And if really even can't bear to hear about these things, now how can we really do it when we are really experiencing them or the beings who are already experiencing this suffering? So we cannot have that kind of resistance and biased attitudes towards the suffering of beings in the three unfortunate states of rebirth. As a matter of fact, we really need to understand their situations and so that we empathize with them and we wish them to be free from suffering so that we ourselves don't have to, go into those situations.
The Chegor, the Korean is a pen and pagan. Yanka Chamber, you with your machine and Yanka del Tosa Shigmaros. Did not you get any Chusho Nil Hoso singing Joga? Any they that doing it on the doing Julas of a tree. Them Mendebri Mambuchita, you are that's around Mendebri, the Mobi Sungu. That did Hamawana. Now, we
talk a lot about the things that we find it unpleasant to listen to, sufferings and, all kinds of things that can go wrong and do go wrong in the samsara. And we may not like to listen to those things, but we have to put a proper perspective on it to understand why we deal with so much the suffering nature of samsara. So it is basically, in our case, it is more like prevention, crisis, or what we call risk prevention, technique. Let me give you an example here. In ordinary sense, when we understand what are the dangers and risks involved in doing something or going through certain areas, then we can prevent the dangers and risk. So that's a risk management that we can bring into. In the same way, when we understand the suffering and the problems of samsara, then that really helps us to manage the risk and dangers involved in samsara so that we don't have to go through all kinds of hellish experiences in samsara.
Dark paint of Bigoni Japanese. That doing it, do some of some mind pain. Doing it, tell you, try tapping around Shaggy, she top a show, Shaggy in somebody never go.
So, as we really try to think about the sufferings of sentient beings who have been our kind parents, we are not simply just trying to understand what problems they have got, But our whole purpose of doing that is to be able to develop this strong compassion, wishing them to be free from their state of suffering. It's not so much like trying to understand what's happening with their life. The whole point of dealing with their suffering is so that we empathize with them and we, develop compassion, towards to and for them.
Oh no, that's somebody. Senji la pen tak pens, random huge into pegoni, Japan Zengos. That is the rang senji gene pen tak by ina, rang tenda the hulita, druid.
And the third reason why we need to learn to cherish and respect sentient beings is that by doing that, we are able to bring about self-improvement and betterment to ourselves. In other words, that indirectly, by working and cherishing sentient beings, indirectly, we are also working to benefit the self.
Sentient pen tak by ina, rang sentient ngushu juice and pen tak by ina. Ranga tanda chembo tas sonan his zogyo.
So when we directly and indirectly work for and benefit sentient beings, we are also accumulating merit and wisdom. And so that means we are fulfilling these two accumulations along the way to be able to reach our spiritual goal.
아니 다 탑당 기부지다 나를 포 기부지라고요나 다 공원에서 그 뒤지고 어디나 랑래 주일랑 패는 것도 왔어.
To give an example here, let's say you got a good job and which has a really nice package deal, benefits. And now if you really work, commit yourself to the work and you work hard, but you're also getting benefiting yourselves at the same time. Through the benefit package and all the things, all the perks that you receive.
All right, this another that is again. The songs that rang the Senji again, the pen, Kandiki, Children, Kandiki, Tava Yena. Take any the Shula, and the Ranla, that Jebut Ran Him, just a teacher.
So when we cherish sentient beings, it is not like we are completely neglecting ourselves here, but as a matter of fact, that is a very smart way to take care of the self as well. By working directly and indirectly for sentient beings, we are also benefiting ourselves, at the same time. I started it off by saying that we need to activate the seed of enlightenment in our mind, and we need to fulfill the two types of accumulation. We need to get rid of the two types of mental obscuration. And how do we do that? In relation to whom? In relation to sentient beings. So when we benefit sentient beings, we cherish sentient beings, along the way, we are also purifying our negativities, we are accumulating merit and wisdom, and eventually, who get the greatest benefit, so to speak? Ourselves. We become Buddhas, we have the enlightened bodies, truth body, and form bodies.
Pena, Chonsakin Hiena, Ranga Sendel Jimba, Mili Jimba Tambina, that Gunkin said of Gunkin, Rang those Jimba Tambina, the any Jimbe, David Hula, Rang Karizana, Lonshet in Junguya.
Just take another example of a practice. In this life, if we are capable of and we practice generosity, we help the poor and needy. And so as a result of that, practice of generosity, we also, become, rich, because generosity leads to resources. If we practice ethics very purely, and by the power of observing ethics, so we are also able to achieve a good rebirth in the future. So you see, so we practice ethics in relation to sentient beings, but our benefit is that we attain good rebirth. So when we talk about practicing ethics, what really involves is we commit ourselves not to hurt others' sentient beings physically, verbally, and mentally.
So that I should carry on as an run dendry combat that pay she was on what you told you.
So the result or the outcome of ethical practice is that we ourselves find good rebirths.
That rally pen rank me ying around la pay never never shave a time. Sing Ebalana, that is never gone good was.
And also when others, they say something unpleasant to us or, hurt us, we need to practice patience.
That's never going to be David Telani, and they around and they pay that carry. Ziggy the Dembata. At the Hana, you can zoo the Dem, Lanso the Dembata, Nungur, Kanji.
So as a result of practicing patience or tolerance, we ourselves will be able to find, a beauty and attractiveness and also a positive influence.
That the nature of goes to temperature, some degrees.
I just kind of highlighted some of these things, and so you can delve more in depth into these matters.
Singing la paint tagbase, Sanjay the Sanjay Samba Tangilani, Chaba Shi, never Shepherd Jew. That Jew arrest this, the niggas on it, Sanotani, Sanjay in the Japan Zinguris.
And the fourth reason to respect and cherish sentient beings is this, that by cherishing sentient beings, we are also cherishing Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It is like when we benefit sentient beings, it's like we are making offering also to please, to delight Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as well.
That's Sanjay the Sanjay Sambatan, Sanya Sanjay Mato to Gumbala Yamare, Sanjay Tangi, Dungi the Tevata, Devata Dembata, Kibu Gumba Yigore. That the native rang Tony, the native Sanjay Yin, Samala Matuna, Sanjay Kamaji, the Tobayina. The nine get up conans over here, Ralpe, Kibu Never Huji. That then I wish you Lani shares something, the Karsangram. So here's some again, Gawakivanangata, Nara Sochibu Zoe.
So why is that, if you ask, is because Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have nothing else to think about except the happiness of sentient beings. That's their primary concern. 24/7, they think about sentient beings, and that's all they care about. And now when we really benefit sentient beings, of course, let's say we can't benefit all sentient beings, but if we benefit even few sentient beings, that really delights Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they kind of appreciate what we are doing for sentient beings.
Tangi, I need go devon of saying, Masaki, Mambochi, and that Masaki meeting that Miki Lepe, Miki that pay Yabush was shaving. That the Masaki Zo Papa Amakarina. Then you were huge gagros, Rank Pinji Pujit and the Yabu Shavina, Kunin Shavel, Latsaji, going to us. Didn't I get it?
So let me give an example here to illustrate my point. It is like, let's think about a very, loving family, closely knit. And if we are really helpful to one of the family members, that makes the whole family very happy with us, right? Whether the head of the family is mom or dad or both or whatever. We haven't helped each of them, but we helped one of them. But because of that loving family, that they all appreciate our help to one of them.
So she prejudice Sheva, any Papa Amal Sheval, that and they can say that Karina, the Garrison. Lay Zangi Karashavina. Yamba Shavina, prejudice Shavina, Papa Amal laying Yamba Sheva, Chagiore. The Hana is somebody shaving and pay some Gagway shaving and that. So Papa Amazon Garce, most Magenaya, so she produced shaving and consequently Gagu was. That thing, Sanjay County in the Zanzibar, some jewelers thinking about Yama, Sonsa, took Gumbala and so thinking about Yama, Sonsa Telani, that net of shaving and that took Panguyare, never saying the food tongue, Zambo saying it's to never Hibushine, or talking about Zoya.
The point I'm trying to make here is when we think of a loving family and the two parents who love their children much more than themselves, what they really care about is the betterment of their children. So when we help their children, that pleases the parents more than when we help the parents themselves personally. But if we do something nasty to the children, these parents get much more mad and angry. Then we do something nasty to them personally. So the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always, thinking about the betterment of sentient beings. So that's why sentient beings are like their children. So when we help these children, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are very pleased with us. But when we hurt them, they feel very disappointed by our actions. Now, the ordinary parents might get mad, really, when we harm their children. But the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they don't get mad. But they're really disappointed when we hurt sentient beings. In the supplement to the middle way, Madhyamika Avatar, it is stated that if we respect and salute Bodhisattvas, that respect and salutation would be same as respecting and saluting the Buddhas. But if we salute the Buddhas, it's not the same as, we are saluting the Bodhisattvas also. Now you see the point? If we respect Bodhisattvas, our respect is also goes to the Buddhas as well. But if we respect Buddhas only, that does not translate into respect to Bodhisattvas. No. That's what Buddha has said in a sutra. If we respect Bodhisattvas, that respect translates into respecting Buddhas. If we respect Buddhas, that does not necessarily translate into respect for Bodhisattvas. And the example given is, if we appreciate the waxing moon, then it is like, we're appreciating all the phases of the waxing moon, including the full moon. But if we wait for the full moon and appreciate the full moon, but that appreciation does not translate into appreciating all the phases of the waxing moon. Geshe quoted the words from the sutra which said, Buddha himself said in his words, if you respect Bodhisattvas, you are respecting me. But if you respect me, it's not the same as respecting Bodhisattvas. So what I've been explaining to you now, this all boils down to the same thing here. That if we respect and cherish sentient beings, this is all like same as cherishing Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Now going back to what Geshe Chagapa originally said, the four things that we should do, and which are in a sense opposite of what the ordinary people think and behave. So the first one we just talked about is ordinary people usually cherish Buddhas but not sentient beings. So we need to do the opposite, cherish sentient beings, more than Buddhas. Now the second one, he said, is ordinary sentient beings cherish self over others. Now we need to learn the opposite, cherish others over self. So even sort of which kind of common sense thing people talk about is, first you need to take care of yourself, okay? Then you can think about others. First, I is so important,
and then Pelam Jidis and the Sengi Tamji, and then Sanji Kumbato, the Pelam Jegus, and the Tar Ranka Jegus. That the Kopachat in the Europe around Kachimbuche. Tell Rally Sengi Gain around Kachurch. So you said, then the Yungus, Kachin around the Insumation.
Years ago, when I came to the United States and started off here, then some people would ask me, when I advised them that we need to cultivate altruism, for the sake of other sentient beings, we need to cherish others. Then somebody would ask, then what about me, the self? So that really shows how much, strong imprint, self-related imprints we carry in our mind.
Yes, that I can go those. Rank yes, more say yes, than Shabina. Kula the rank than them to do us, than they take you songs.
So now, if we really cherish others and dedicate, our good actions for them, that also brings benefit to the self as well.
Then they didn't say that the thing Tambuton and do us.
No. Of all the 4 reasons that Geshe Tsultim gave about need to cherish sentient beings, that's all explained in that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that given this. That will go till the dog was Carriation. Carriation at day. So, Toma Mepanis, Rangi Dungi. Toma Mepane, Rangi Randu the Cuba less. Yes, switch I do the macho tattery. Ta Yen Kipan Zingers and a Carriation, Ran Kipan Zingiamaris, Carriation, Maras Dubuchita Yanguers, Coenel, the Yango at the Rangi shape lake, Rang told me the was. Just go round Kipan Zini, laying about the side, did one day, call a codigo at Zever was coming.
So Geshe Tsultim says that, most of the people cherish self over others, but we need to do the opposite thinking. And we need to cherish others over the self. And he says, why? Because, from beginningless time until now, we have cherished ourselves too much. It has not worked, And who is really responsible, or what is responsible for all the suffering we go through in samsara is because of self-cherishing attitude and all the actions we perform under its influence. That is the source of our problem and suffering. So now we need to recognize that, because what we have done all this time has not worked, so we need to change our way of thinking, and cherish others over self.
So that Ran and they very connected same deal told us Shumbagina, some saying Hamala rank shape later, and they laying about Ben the Duchess Shumbagina, Dungit Yobagina, Ran saying Shong Hamal lay Nambasapi, Namis, that Namich and Draper, that Namich and Draper, Namich and Draper, the Yaw and Yoguari, in a 13 Junti Draper as Lucian de Yoguari. Tana Yaga Yabuji Shenes, that on the Namit and the round sending Jungu was.
So the point we are trying to make here is that, we are responsible for all the good and bad things happening in our life and in samsara. All the things going wrong in our life and the sufferings and the problems we face are the outcomes of the negative karmas that we ourselves didn't accumulate under the influence of self-cherishing attitude. And the things happening, good things to our life, are also the results of good karmas that we have, that we did and accumulate. So even when we do the wrong things or the negative actions, I think our motivation is really we want to benefit ourselves. There is some kind of a selfish, kind of a positive intention. I want to benefit self, but then we indulge in negativities. I'm thinking about the 10 negativities of body, speech, and mind, starting with killing.
That's so good. The rang enemy and the chat that can the move go on to so yours.
So when we kill, our motivation is either attachment, anger, or ignorance. So out of those delusions, we kill.
The chat and a jig when the so but the run page sometimes kicking us.
So when we think about killing out of attachment and anger, what that really involves is we really want to protect the self. benefit the self.
That the Nami the Garazana, Ran Shavashima data, the regular social Yindaki, Rang Seson Doyeti, Yungu Areti, this a Maze, at the Nami thing about the time Yala Yongo Chaguris.
So when we kill someone out of any of the delusional motivations, then we experience its ripening result in the unfortunate states of rebirth such as hell. But then even if we are in a better situation, we still experience results concordant with our negative action of killing, such as other people will kill us. And okay, let's think about the stealing. It is out of attachment. We steal thing for someone and bring it to ourselves, or out of anger we destroy somebody's property. That means we're not getting anything for ourselves. In either case, we have experienced the ripening result of our stealing in bad migration. So all these actions are basically coming from our self-centeredness, a self-cherishing attitude, that we really don't care about others. So I'm just kind of pointing one or two things here so that you will be able to think about similar situations, examples from your side. And we are going to stop there today.
Oh, yes.
And we have a prayer request for Mr. Trung Nguyen, who is dealing with health issues. And also an announcement that I think there are letters that you could help send to senators and representatives of the congressmen and women, with regard to the repression going on in Tibet. So all the letters and things are in the lobby, if you could help.
Honest. That one around link in the church should be given to all Latini, and Sanji Dember budget are you in the Nepata. Joey, be Tenzin ship at Tamban and Jose Chabet Temper, the 2 Ginot and Bemelo Yomata. And the church don't get any show Pomon and Jukundi Shavana, it's and Drovata. You think you come yen, that I gained the Montibi Gusota like Henny, thinking the Sota that may make Yom.
Sure, they can, but they don't have. Let us dedicate our collective marriage for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other holy masters live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. Last but not least, we dedicate our collective marriage for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all become Buddhas soon.
Never in the was never there's a money peta, Nenang there's a money pen, Zambilinta, and Singi Rilla, Nagata, Shamambo, you're there, Tahana, singing Mango, you're there, Tahana, you get that and some those in the mud that they told a passage, Jinging told Pangi Mamundo, Tenzo Tangi, and then to Tenzo, shit something they do Tenzo Toya down, never Tenzo nearly Toya, some Carse, one of Jiggies.
And I also like to ask you to join in prayers to dedicate our marriage for like billions of sentient beings. We just only got one name here who are dealing with health issues and so may they be able to recover from their sicknesses and find good health. And also, billions of sentient beings, die under different circumstances. Many die in war, many die under repression. And we think about all of them and dedicate our merit for them to find good rebirths.